I want to show you how to deal with hemming chiffon. I'm definitely going to admit to you that dealing with hemming chiffon is not an easy prospect at first. It can become so run-of-the-mill, and because doing formal wear alterations is really good income, you're going to want to master this so that you can take on a lot of folks who need this service. So let's begin. I'm going to show you 3 ways. The first way is with your regular presser foot, where you would simply take and turn once and then a second time. And you can pin this certainly as you will, and start running your stitch line. Let me get started here and then get back with you. So I'm using a small needle, a small universal needle, and I've just folded over twice the edge, and I'm going along here. And that's okay. I think I'll lengthen my stitch length quite a bit, actually. I like them long because then you get farther faster. So I'm going along and everything's groovy. But honestly, in my humble opinion, it's a pain to, especially as you approach bias curves, which we all know these full skirts have, it gets increasingly harder to make a neat roll. See how it just won't roll very neatly there? So if I were to continue along here, which I will, it's not so neat. It might look neat on the outside, but it kind of doesn't. See? So here's my suggestion. You can learn how to be adept at this and keep going along, but you will be very frustrated, ultimately, I fear. So, I have a solution in mind. Invest in a rolled hem attachment. I have 2 here. One will make the rolled hem skinnier than this other one will. I think we'll start with the number 4 and see how skinny we can get. So I'm just going to go ahead and attach it now. On my machine, this is how it's done. Begin at a seam by having, yes, rolled it as we did before, twice, just to get it started. See if I can get the camera and everything to cooperate here. Okay, needle down. Now you're going to find on YouTube plenty of resources to show you how to get this started. I'll just show you my way. Starting at that side seam, I just go ahead. Yes, I'll backstitch. And I'll really kind of pull on these threads to get it started. Sometimes it takes a little doing to get traction. Once I get a couple stitches out, I raise the presser foot and insert the fabric right in this little roll extension. Put the presser foot down. Yes, I kind of go ahead and roll the fabric ahead. And now I go. And it just feeds in really neatly. That said, when you come to bias curves, it will still be challenging. So let's see if we can run into one. So far, so good. Very neat on the outside. Not bad on the inside. This can all be steam pressed. Sometimes this device works so slick that you don't even have to roll ahead. It'll just feed in right, but you can't count on that. So I just like to be safe and sure. Just kind of roll it ahead, and it doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of get it started, and the feeder will feed it through beautifully. Now I'm stopping a little bit ahead of a curve here I see coming up. You don't want to be right on top of the curve all of a sudden, because sometimes right at that very curved bias cut of the fabric, it's hard to get the fabric stuffed in through the feeder. And I'm going to recommend that you take plenty of scrap in the beginning, especially on the satin or the lining scrap, and practice on that a lot. But I don't think you're going to be thrilled with this rolled hem attachment. I sure am. Now right here, I'm kind of in danger of it running not through the feeder quite the way I wanted to. It got really narrow here. So I'm going to kind of pick it up and go slowly through here. I'm also approaching a major curve here. Right here, before I get to another seam, is kind of a major curve. I might not be able to see it. It's going to present a little bit of a challenge here. Let's see how we get through. Now right here, I'm really challenged. It wants to not fold in so well. If I just kind of get it folded, the feeder ought to forgive that for me. Let's see if it will. And see, it did at that moment, but right here I'm kind of in trouble again. Let's see what happens. So I think I'm at a point where this is not going to feed in well, but I'm going to go ahead anyway until it kind of rights itself right at the seam. And I'm also at the seam, at each seam, because it really won't go through a seam, especially a seam facing away. I just lift up the presser foot, get it out of the curlicue, and just go forward normally over the seam. And then I'm going to just start again. Get it in the curlicue. See if I can get this so that you can see how I did that. Roll it once, and the second time it goes in the curlicue. Let me try it from up higher. I was like so. I want to get it in the curlicue. I've got it folded once. Now it's in the curlicue. So I thought. I'll kind of hold it up a little taut, put the presser foot down, and get started. There. It got started nicely. So I would just keep going. Later, I'll come back and fix this because everything will be secure here and here, and I'll by hand, without the attachment, with my regular presser foot, I'll probably just go through here. But it will be more manageable than it was when I was there a minute ago, because all this now is sewn down. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I will rectify that situation. Meanwhile, look at how nicely everything is turning out. So don't despair if you come to little trouble spots like this. You might have one or two on a skirt. I'm probably going to run into that again, right here on the other side of the seam. See how we fare coming from this direction, from that seam. I'm already in the curlicue. I want to stop well ahead of this major curve here and see if I can coax it in. So I'm just going to go a few stitches at a time. Keep coaxing. Coaxing. And it's all because this stuff is so flimsy. On the lining pieces where the fabric is sturdier, it's easier. But chiffon is the way of the formal dress world, and so you're going to run into this a lot. Yeah, see, I'm in trouble here. This curve was just too much. So again, I'm just going to kind of fake my way past it until I get to a reasonable area, and I'll go back and fix that later. I finally gave up at that trouble spot and just kind of took my needle and presser foot off and started again. And I'll just have to come back there and deal with that later. I tell you, when it works slick, it is beautiful. When it doesn't, it's very frustrating. As you can see. So why would anyone even put up with that or deal with that? Well, I've got a nice solution for you. Coming up. But first I'm going to show you on a lining piece how this is done. And I would stick with using this device on lining pieces because the firmness of the material is going to cooperate for you better. So I'm just getting this started. As you can see, I like to trim my lining pieces with pinking shears. I just hate fray. I don't do it on the chiffon because the pinked edges can show through the hem, and we don't want the zigzag to show through. Doesn't matter on the lining pieces. So now, as I taught you, you go a few stitches, then you get it pulled into the curlicue, and this goes better when you don't have a camera tripod in between you and the machine. Okay, here we go. When you get to a curve, it's just sturdier to deal with. You can still run into some of what we ran into on the chiffon. It's just not as critical, and when you pull, kind of pull tautly at a curve. Roll that in by hand somewhat, and let the device do the rest. Okay, so I think you're getting the idea how infinitely easier it is on the lining skirt pieces. Now here it doesn't want to cooperate and get in there real well. The feeder should just do it for me. It is. So just know, when you run into a chiffon dress that usually has 1 or 2 skirt layers underneath, you are going to meet with quite a bit less frustration on those underskirt pieces. So invest in one of these devices. You will be glad. They're inexpensive. I just can't be without one. Okay? Here I'm making it so that it's difficult here. But I think the device will just feed it right in. Yep. And it looks ever so nice, doesn't it? Okay, so far I've showed you 2 ways to struggle through chiffon hemming. And the first way was just kind of rolling it by hand and somehow getting through. The second way was by investing in a rolled hem device attachment and making out quite a bit better, and how to deal with trouble spots. Here's the third way. The third way to do a fabulous chiffon skirt hem is by using your serger. So I'm going to show you how to find this stitch on your serger, or one similar, because buzzing through your serger with this stitch is infinitely easier than tackling this straight stitch, even with the rolled hem attachment, in my humble opinion. So let's explore that together now. On your nice 4-spool serger, you ought to have a setting that will arrive at a stitch that looks like this. Here's the good side, or the front side, here's the back side. It just requires 3 of your spools. Here's the manufacturer's hem. And here's what your serger can do. It makes a nice zigzag edge, very clean. It's very lovely. When I show this sample to customers, they don't care which they get. Rare will be the customer who will insist on the straight stitch. So just know ahead of time how you're going to handle that kind of a situation. I'm to the point where largely I refuse to do this anymore, and I just go with this stitch. It's just infinitely easier. It looks nice, and in fact, it kind of flutes the edge more than the straight stitch does. So just be aware there's quite a bit of difference in how it looks. They're both beautiful. One is a lifesaver, in my humble opinion. Here I am in the throes of chiffon serging, chiffon hem serging, and I just swear by this technique. You noticed how I just was buzzing right along. I did allow on this machine about a ½ inch extra than I might have on my old machine. So what I'm really getting at here is really thoroughly explore your serger. Find this benefit for yourself, whatever it takes. Because once you master it, you will be able to take on any chiffon hemming that comes your way. Yes, explore the machine thoroughly. I know no one really wants to have to read their manual, but I just am going to reinforce at the risk of just being overbearing here. This is the answer. Find out what the idiosyncrasies of your machine are, master them, and then take on chiffon, formal dress, hemming. You'll be glad you did.